Welcome, folks, to the OKD Working Group meeting for July 4th of the year 2023. Please take a few minutes to look at the agenda and see if there's anything that's been missed, anything that you want to move around, anything that you'd like to postpone discussion on, or anything like that. We'll take about 30 seconds for that. All right, we good on the agenda? Any last minute changes? All right, folks seem to be happy with it. So let's jump in with OKD release and CI/CD updates with Luigi. It looks like you're the only one because Alex is here too. So
yeah,
okay,
yeah, I can do. Alex can maybe do an update if that's okay, Alex.
Yeah, it's okay. Last week we stabilized our pipelines in MLC. So there is only one step that we need to make sure it's working. But basically, probably by the end of this week, we will be able to do the OKD releases again. And so I think that's it. Do you have anything else, Luigi?
No, I think that's it. Just the one outstanding issue is just with we will be testing tomorrow with the S3 whitelist.
Yeah.
With the S3 bucket.
This is the only thing that is missing.
Yeah.
This is working fine. We will be able to do a release by the end of the week.
Excellent, very cool. Any questions, feedback, thoughts on that? All right, that's pretty straightforward. Moving on now to FCOS updates. Timothy.
Hey folks, how's it sound? Good. All right. So I have a couple of items, 3 items to be precise, but all of them are about upcoming changes. So things that haven't landed yet in Federac OS, but things that we're looking at doing. So one is about Hyper-V support. So you might not need it right now unless you want to run Federac OS or OKD on Hyper-V on top of Windows. But it's something that is interesting, for example, for if you want to run things like WSL or systems like single node OKD, for example, on top of Hyper-V directly on top of Windows. So support for Hyper-V is coming nicely and should happen soon in Federac OS, and then we can get support in OKD, and then we can get single node OKD working on Windows directly on top of Hyper-V. So that's one of the news. The second item is about firmware update metadata. So this is a change that we're doing in Federac OS as well that will come as well to OKD, is that we enable the refresh of the firmware update metadata by default. So what's all of this? The firmware metadata, so firmware FD is a tool that lets you update the firmware of hardware devices on your system. It's using the LVFS, the Linux vendor firmware service, to get the firmwares from the internet, from vendors that publish the firmware there. And so what we're enabling here is the metadata fetching. So essentially it's fetching the list of firmware updates from the network and getting them onto your computer. And if you have a firmware update, then it will show you a nice message on the login screen, telling you, hey, you've got like 2 pieces of hardware that have a firmware update available. We're not going to do those firmware updates automatically because we essentially can't, because they might require user intervention. You might be required to reboot your system, unplug, replug something. It might temporarily disable disk, etc. So we can't really do that live. So this just show you that, hey, there's firmware updates available, and then you decide when you want to do them, when you want to apply them to your system. So that's the second point. And the third point is about LVM and how LVM is managed on systems. Right now, if you create LVM block devices, I think some of the local storage modes in plugins in Kubernetes do that. They use LVM to create a pool of storage for pods, for containers. So if you create LVM devices, essentially right now they're just created there and they're not particularly managed, they're not particularly listed anywhere. With this change here, we're going to introduce an option, we're going to enable an option in the LVM configuration that essentially makes a distinction between managed and unmanaged LVM blocks, LVM devices, and so that changes slightly the behavior so that it works better with Kubernetes. So this has potentially an impact if you're already using LVM, and we kind of have to make sure that this change doesn't break your current existing LVM setup. So we're trying to do, likely to do a migration script or something to make sure that existing system that are already using LVM keep working. But as always, help with testing this would be greatly appreciated. So this one isn't implemented right now, but we're looking into it. And so if you are a heavy user of LVM devices, this is something we would need help with. So feedback will come here. And I think that's about it for me.
All right. Do we have any questions, any feedback, any thoughts on any of those items? All right, that seems pretty straightforward. And now let's move on to any SCOS updates. I don't know, Timothy, if you have anything. Christian isn't here. Anything in terms of, yeah, right. Yeah, it's summer, so everything is quiet. Yeah.
There is one thing that we have added to our SCOS build pipeline is a layering that Christian has created a PR for. So we build so it splits the build into SCOS base, and then we add in an OKD layer afterwards. So there's this notion of a layered approach build. We actually should have mentioned that we've implemented that the PR has been implemented in the pipeline. I'll add the PR in the pipeline section there.
Thank you.
But I think that's about it really from the SCOS side.
Okay, excellent. And that's a big step, I think. I think that that's something that's been talked about for a while, and it's great. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Now moving on to community development updates. Brian.
I don't think there's any point me doing this one because I wasn't here. So
yeah, that's true. You weren't at the last one. Well, basically, we went through the cards, and there was a little more discussion, and actually, it brings us down to the item after this. But basically, there was a little bit more discussion on doing sessions that would allow us to sort of bootstrap community members into supporting OKD, and not everything falling on the shoulders of the dean, basically, in the community. And we had broken it down previously in discussion to FCOS, MCO, and must gather being the three things for people to really understand to be able to provide community help of OKD. So a little bit of discussion at the community development last week, it came up that it would be good if these were half-an-hour sessions apiece for each topic, pre-recorded, and then that would allow us time to find out if people need to know more, and then do like a live session that we invite community members to, if there's something that needs to be filled in, if there's, you know, anything that's not apparent in the videos, that would be appreciated. Mike thinks that he can get someone from the MCO team. Timothy, would you be willing to do like a maybe, you know, 20 minutes, you know, half an hour video that's just demonstrating, you know, FCOS and sort of how it fits into the overall OKD picture? And I know that there are some tweaks that get made, and obviously we'd have Vadim, I think, chip in on that. So maybe it'd be something that you and Vadim could work on together to just provide something that would be like, okay, this is FCOS, and then this is how FCOS gets tweaked, you know, in an OKD install. Is that something we could cajole you into doing?
Yeah, we could. I think we could do that.
Or do you have a better idea?
Is there kind of like a script or like a list of things people would want us to talk about? And,
Well,
so that we have like
yeah, sure. To give you some foundation stuff. I think what we could do is over the next week or two, the community development group could go through Slack, go through the working group mail list, and try to get a sense for what types of questions people are asking and things that people would need to know to understand how FCOS fits into OKD. So I think we can get back to you with a list of bullet points that need to be addressed for people's understanding. If we gave you that, would that give you a good foundation to do that?
Yeah, definitely. We can do one 5-10 minute video for Fedora Chorus, and then 5-10 again for, or just one big video for, hey, what's Fedora Chorus, what's interesting Chorus, and how does it fit in OKD? We already have a good bunch of presentation about the subject, but yeah, maybe something less.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's already been done, you know, the past, like, what, 5 years or whatever, videos. If would you be able to maybe collate the top 3 presentations that are out there, if you want us to take a look at those and see if those are sufficient enough? You know, maybe just drop some links into the meeting notes sometime in the next 2 weeks, you know, or a week or so, and then, you know, let us know which presentations that you think are best representative or best showing, I guess, of the core ideas, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll copy paste some links that I have, but yeah,
it's up to you. I want to be respectful of your time because I know you've got a lot going on. So
sure, but I think it's fine if we have like list of things that we want to talk about, then it helps us create something targeted for that. And like say, like, we speak just about those topics, and yeah, we make a short video about those. And that works for me.
okay, Brian, do you have anything you want to add to that? I know since you weren't at the community development meeting, this is a little bit new to you, that discussion from last week. Is there anything you would add?
No, I actually did watch the playback that you put up. I think that makes sense, having a number of smaller ones, but I think it is the whole process of understanding CoreOS, the ignition system. It's immutable. You can't go in and just edit it. So understanding what it is about CoreOS, and then I think, as Alnico said, you then build on top of that with what OKD does to CoreOS, how it actually uses CoreOS, and then we have the rest of OKD, which is like the must gather, which I think you do need to understand that ground work as you go into that must gather. But I think that is where all the sort of the stuff happens, and I don't think it's a quick 15 minutes to do that. As people have said, you sort of get a feel for where to look, and from the error messages, it sort of directs you, and you have to learn that. There's no magic bullet there. You just got to go learn that stuff. But I think the groundwork is a great starting place.
And I would say ignition would be one of the first.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I would add on to that is, are there any significant differences between SCOS and FCOS? Because we've got the two different platforms. So just if there are any differences, I know we build them very differently today. And one's done PROW internal, one's done pipeline, sort of on the MC, the mass cloud. So, but again, if there are any other details within there that are different, we could highlight.
All right. All right, so this sounds good. And then I think we'll have Vadim chip in, maybe on must gather with Mike, if Mike, because he says he's going to try to get around to it, but he also, I know, has time constraints as well. But if we can maybe have people work together, they maybe could record a Zoom session between the two of them or something like that. That might be an efficient way to get these collaborative ones done. And that way it doesn't fall all on someone's plate. Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything else from the community development meeting that's relevant, other than survey is moving forward. We're getting responses. I think we're close to like 20 responses now, which doesn't sound like a lot, but please promote it to folks. And we'll try to get people, filling that out so that we can get squared away for direction and understanding. I did want to riff on something. I think that's it from community development updates. Any questions on any of the community development stuff? Okay, one thing I wanted to throw on before we end the meeting is multiple release streams. So this has come up in a variety of contexts over the past couple of years. We've said, well, we just because of resources, we only support the current latest basically of OCP. And Vadim actually, in a conversation with someone in Slack the other day, said, well, if we had Cincinnati support, then we could actually have a graph with multiple streams and we could support like a 13 and a 14. Is there any desire to open this Pandora's box, can of worms, however you want to phrase it? We would have to, there's links there for the technical background to Cincinnati, and it's really, do we want to go there? Do we want to go to, supporting 2 releases? And again, community support, right? Not even official support. This is community help and dedicated community resources to multiple major or multiple minor releases. Thoughts?
The main thing is, as always, it needs somebody to take care of the graph in Cincinnati. So, but Cincinnati is, it lets you tell if you have an OpenShift cluster on version 1, if you want to go to version 2. It tells you, hey, those and those versions are okay to update to version 2. And so it tells you how do you update in versions. And so every time you make a new version, you have to decide, hey, am I going to offer this to the previous stream or not? Is it working? Is the update working? Something like that. So there's this work that somebody has to do to maintain this graph, essentially. This is the main thing here.
I guess the other thing, Jamie, are you looking at FCOS based, SCOS based, or both of them? Because again, I think for the FCOS release, that's all going to fall on probably Vadim or Christian, because they're the only ones that can actually make the releases. And I don't know, Luigi, Alex, do we have any sort of idea or concept of multiple sort of streams of the pipeline? with different against different branches or anything? Because
Yes.
I think there would have to be some work to do
Yeah.
that. And then at some point, someone's got to test all this as well, because it's okay saying Cincinnati, but I don't know whether we have our pipelines automatically running tests yet or not. I just think there's a lot of work that we're talking about here, basically.
Well, and just to be clear, that's what Vadim actually said, was he was like, if you want to volunteer, because it was one of our regulars was actually asking about it. It was Brian Monroe, and Vadim was saying, well, if you want to volunteer to get this going and support it, help support it in the community, then we could do this. But otherwise, you know, we're at where we're at.
But with FCOS, unless you're a Red Hatter, I don't think you can do it, can you? There's so much of
Right. I mean, I think that really, I think to answer your question, yeah, I mean, it would be SCOS. It would be have to just be relegated to SCOS. Luigi,
Yeah,
do you have
yeah. So, sorry, Jamie, I was going to say currently we built 2 versions. One is like the latest dev version, which is based on, at the moment, 4.14, and then we do the G8 version is 4.13. And then obviously there are no Z streams, so yeah, I don't know if the Cincinnati graph will be that complicated, but like you say, Brian, someone has to maintain it, someone has to make sure it's right, and that you have some form of upgrade path. If you're going from 4.13, let's say 4.15 comes out, you need to maintain that upgrade path and make sure the edges are right. And it's a testing of that. That's I think that's the big one.
Because I mean, as we look at the previous versions, we don't backport everything. So we cherry picked certain things, which then was going to add even more work to it, because it's not just taking sort of like the head stream or the dev stream. You've got to cherry pick stuff in, which may have dependency. I can just see there is quite a lot of work to actually backport fixes into previous versions, unless there is something we can just pull from OCP to say, let's try and be as close to their releases as possible. But again, I'm not sure if that's possible or not.
Yeah, and to provide even further context, the conversation came up because there was discussion about OKD in production, and the fact that basically if you want support, you have to jump to that next minor version, which may mean operators not working, right? Depending on what operators you're using, that may mean operators not working. So that complicates, you know, using OKD in production for sure. Which GitHub repo is the current graph hosted in? That's a good question. I don't know.
Well, internally for the release for Red Hat releases, there's an internal Cincinnati graph server, and that is totally Red Hat. Within the Red Hat VPN, no one will be able to access it. So I don't know if there's a repo available for that. And I suppose the other question is, so, and I'm talking now, I'm talking from a Red Hat perspective, okay? Red Hat will say, guys, if you want OKD in production, then just use Red Hat, use OCP, create some subscriptions, buy the product, and you'll have.
Well, but that actually is what the framing that this came out of was someone actually saying, we don't have the money to buy OCP because it costs, you know, X amount of dollars. And I think they estimated out that it's like half of the cost of their hardware every year, right? So, you know, OKD sounds palatable until they start thinking about those operators, right?
Yeah. But I would imagine if they have internal SREs and support for that, then it does make sense. Then I think that the work that the drive that we're going through, the initiative of operators, could help towards that. And maybe the upgrade to other versions we could leave for a later stage, but get them to a place where they're able to say, oh, we've got OKD and we can support it in our production environment.
Leroy, go ahead.
I think my question was more about like current OKD clusters are pointed at an upstream graph API. And I'm not sure it's very clear who owns or maintains that graph.
So I don't have the definitive answer on this, but I think it's completely auto-generated from the just being the latest release, given that we just have one stream, there's one release. Every time we generate a new one, essentially everybody gets off of the latest one, and that's about it.
Okay.
Vadim will surely know more about that than me because I don't maintain that.
Do you know, is this the same graph server that OCP is currently using?
I don't think so.
Okay. So we already kind of have our own graph server. It's just nobody's actively maintaining that graph data. It's just a copy of what gets built.
Yeah, and we could also say that decide that hey, we have this graph, and essentially every time there's a new release, it gets updated, and you decide when you want to switch streams, when you want to switch versions, but there's no guarantee that any version is going to correctly update to the other one, because if we want to have that, then we need somebody to actually test the thing, report success or failure, and then tweak the graph for that.
I guess the other thing of that is we only have a single stream. Unlike OCP, we don't have multiple streams. We don't have fast. We don't have sort of a stable. We don't have, we just have the single stream in OKD. So the graph is really just that single stream. And I'm guessing that's part of the build process where we just do the updates. I know that we do run some testing because you can't see that, but I'm guessing that's part of what happens in Prow for the FCOS version and what happens in the pipeline for, we'll just do that. We'll actually just create the update path. Yes.
Yeah, wish Christian or Vadim were here to shed a little bit of light on that, because that area is a little bit fuzzy, I think, for us. So we'll definitely bring that up for the next meeting. Yeah. All right. Well, I just want to get the conversation going. Vadim brought up a good point, which is if we can get community support, then we can support multiple versions. It would be great to see OKD used in production more. And I think that not always being on the edge like that would be helpful for folks to embrace it for production reasons.
But I do think it raises the question, who is going to decide what gets backported to the previous versions? Because we don't have that function anywhere within OKD at the minute. I know OCP does because they support for 18 months and the longer versions, but we don't have that notion. So somebody will have to work out for each fix, is this going to be backported or can it be backported? And
I think it's slightly different than that, in the sense that we get the fix that get backported into OCP, we get them into OKD. So essentially the version 2 would get all the fix from OpenShift. So let's take real numbers. 4.14, 4.12, all the 4.12 builds will get all the backports for 4.12, and they will happen in the next builds, and they will land in that stream. Same thing for 4.13, and they will land there.
So is it just that we don't have periodic builds of those backported releases?
I think that's the gist of it, is that all of our resources immediately get shifted towards that next minor release, right? And we don't do testing builds of those at that point. Basically stops. Yeah. And you can see that if you look at that CI link that I just pasted. Yeah. All right. Well, and I think that this boils down to volunteers, right? And that was another thing that's come out of the community development meeting, particularly in the last meeting, is we really need to make a push for volunteers. And if someone is interested in volunteering, this is a great opportunity, right? And sort of a great issue, I think, to get, we would need a handful of volunteers, I think. But if people are really interested in getting this in production and getting that multi-minor version support, or releases, I should say, then I think that we can sort of rally around this. And so maybe we'll bring it up at the community development meeting and find other opportunities to talk about this as an entrance to volunteerism in the community.
Yeah, this is the whole point about how I thought around the OKD streams. So streams with an S, is that essentially it's much easier for anybody to host their own pipeline and start doing their own builds. And so because we publish the whole thing as a Tecton pipeline, and you can self-host your own. So we could have community members taking over builds for older versions of the OKD Escos and host themselves on their own infra or somewhere else. And doesn't have to be us. It doesn't have to be Red Hat. Doesn't have to be the MOC. It can be anywhere essentially, because the build process is completely available for anybody. So who builds what version, when, how, etc. That it's much more flexible than the process we had before.
Any other thoughts on that, Adam? All right. Any last thoughts as we've made it through the agenda and we can close the meeting? Anything else that folks want to talk about? All right. Well, in that case, want to say goodbye? No. All right. In that case, I think we're good. And so we will talk about this particular item and also the videos, I think, at the community development meeting. Speaking of videos, you'll notice all of the videos are now up. We're up to the last meeting is actually posted, and so it'll be back to being timely. When I broke my arm, or my arm was broken for me, I sort of stopped posting videos because I was constrained. But things are back. And a question for the group real quick. Do folks find the videos helpful, or is it problematic to have to go through videos to find out what's happening in OKD land? Because I saw an off comment, not really to OKD, but another community, where someone was like, yeah, I don't like that they post videos. You know, it would be better if they posted good notes. And I just want to ping the group real quick on any thoughts on that. Anything?
I personally find them useful, as I haven't been able to attend the last couple of community meets regularly. So I've been going up and catching up on the videos.
Okay.
I think even if we do get to putting better notes out, the videos are a great source of those notes. So if we're going to record the video anyway, why not just post it? And if people want it, I think the question is, do we want to do the additional work of writing up fuller minutes or fuller notes from a meeting?
Yeah, the thing that I miss is that the videos don't capture the chat. And sometimes I'm like, I'm sure somebody posted a link to something in the chat, and then you scroll through the video.
Yeah. We try to capture all of those, but maybe not. Yeah.
I was going to say, do you actually look at the HackMD along with the video? Because most things that we post into the chat, we try and put into the HackMD. Not
Yeah, no,
always, but we try to capture the links.
Yeah. I should put the HackMD link in the description for the videos. I just have the OKD general website link, but
Okay.
maybe if I put the HackMD link in there, it'll be easier for folks to click on it.
I mean, the one comment I would say, having missed last week, was when we're going through the board, we should share the screen and show the board.
Sure. Yeah.
Because not seeing the item that's being talked about, you sort
Sure.
of try to go through and work out which one are they talking about now. So
Yeah.
I think share the screen when going through the board. That would
Yeah.
help.
And we've talked about doing that. We just haven't actually gone through with it. All right. We'll do that at the next meeting.
And what's happening next week? Are we going through the board again, or have we got a?
We're just going to go through the board again, and I think talk about these videos and sort of nail down time frames and the suggested things in terms of FCOS, what some bullet points that we think that folks would definitely want to know about in terms of understanding, you know, FCOS in regards to OKD. Yeah. So, because it's summertime and a lot of folks are sort of scattered right now, so and you know, it was pretty slim meeting. Last couple of both meetings actually been kind of slim attendance. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much, folks. Appreciate your time. Yeah. All right. Thanks so much, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Sure. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.